The Texas Department of Public Safety has issued a new version of the dash cam video that shows the arrest of Sandra Bland, who was later found dead in her jail cell. The first version featured several glitches. Now, the newly released video does not have repeated shots and is about 3 minutes shorter, but it is the way the Texas State Trooper handled the traffic stop that is now coming into question.
Don't touch me. I'm not under arrest. You don't have the right to take me.
You are under arrest.
I'm under arrest for what?
2547 County FM 1098. Just
For
north
what?
of 290. Send me another unit. Get out of the car.
Another unit FM 1098.
Get out of the car now.
Why am I being apprehended? You trying to give me a ticket
I
for your
said get
failure?
out of the car.
Why am I being apprehended? You
I'm
just
giving
opened
you a
my
lawful
car
order.
door. You just
I'm
opened
going
my
to
car
drag you
door.
out of here.
So you threatening to drag me out of my own car.
Get out of the car.
And then you
I will
stun
light
me?
you up. Get out.
Wow.
Now.
Wow.
Get out of the
Really,
car.
for a failure to signal. You doing all of this for a
Get
failure
over
to
there.
Right, yeah. Yeah, let's take this to court.
Glenn Martin is the founder of Just Leadership USA, which focuses on prisons and the criminal justice system here in America. And Glenn, good to see you again. What's your reaction?
Same story, new players. It's unfortunate. I mean, you watch this officer, this trained police officer, essentially go from 0 to 100 like this because she wouldn't put out a cigarette. And arguably, he said he was going to give her a warning in the beginning. So I would say that, you know, again, as a trained police officer, he should be the one thinking about de-escalating the situation, even if the person who got pulled over is in a bad mood and not having a good day.
What does this latest incident say? Where does it find its place in this continuum of the discussion that we're having on the policing of minorities in this country?
We're having a national discussion about police legitimacy. Clearly, there was no procedural justice here. He didn't tell her what he was doing. He just essentially went into a rage himself, arguably. And it fits right into the narrative of how people of color and poor people in this country have been saying for years that law enforcement engages them. And now we're seeing it, and we're seeing it up close. My biggest concern is that people get desensitized to it because we're actually seeing it so often.
We had a conversation about this. Explain your thinking on that.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate because, again, for decades, if not for centuries, people of color have talked about law enforcement having this sort of engagement, and yet people weren't able to see it up close. Now we have it on video. We're seeing it over and over and over again. And the question for me is, where's the outrage? Not just the outrage from the general public, but where's the good police officers? Where's the police officers who take a look at this and say, I don't want to be painted with that brush, that this is not right.
Help me here. We talked about this. I can imagine this police officer. I don't know what it says about me, but I can imagine this police officer saying to his supervisor, why am I being put on desk duty? Did you see this video?
Yeah.
Did you hear me talking about this? Did you see this? Why am I the one why am I wrong here?
I actually would not be surprised if he was saying that, and I'll tell you why. Because these are paramilitary organizations, and they have a culture that is embedded and ingrained, and it's across the country. Doesn't matter the color of the skin of the police officer. Actually, I would argue that we're spending way too much time trying to figure out if these individual officers are racist, because the entire system is systemically racist. The question is, would he go from 0 to 100 so quickly?
No, finish your thought. I was about to jump.
Would he go from 0 to 100 so quickly if that were a white woman in that car? He has a narrative in his head about people of color that allowed him to move so quickly from calm to being enraged.
So the entire system, what leads you to that conclusion?
You know, I have family in law enforcement. My father was a police officer.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this.
My brother's correction officer. He's now a U.S. Marshal. What I know is this, that institutions change people long before people change institutions. That people end up in law enforcement. They have a difficult job. It's a dangerous job. And at the same time, the question is, are they going to push back on the culture of the institution, or are they going to find a way to do their job and go home at the end of the day? And I would argue that it is exactly what they do is they become part of the institution themselves, and they become part of the culture, unfortunately.
And that doesn't matter if the officer is Hispanic and the officer is black. It doesn't, does it?
I think it's important if, I think people need to be held responsible for their behavior. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sort of dismissing whether or not a person engages in racism right there on the job. But I think we lose sight of the entire system when we only focus on the individual. And that is my concern here, that people are seeing these individual cases over and over, becoming desensitized to it, or spending too much time focusing on the one cop as opposed to the entire orchard being bad, not just the bad apple.
Right, and but we are so used to falling into these bromides where we say, well, there are great cops out there, and you can't indict the whole lot with the sins of the one officer. You take kind of a different view of this?
I take a different view of it because, again, I think that, number one, we've seen so many incidents of this. At what point do we get to the point where we say it's not a bad apple, it's a bad orchard? And then secondly, that's just a dangerous approach to take, because the truth is, again, people become part of that institution, part of that culture, and people of color have been saying this for years.
I got nothing else for you. Glenn, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Glenn Martin is the founder of Just Leadership USA, which focuses, as I mentioned at the top here, on prisons and the criminal justice system in America. Glenn, thank you.
Thank you.